Welcome to the name game. Workout number 77 is skid marks. For time, we have 16 dumbbell thrusters, 50 pounds per hand for males, 35s per hand for females. 1 wall walk. 14 thrusters, 2 wall walks. 12 thrusters, 3 wall walks. 10 thrusters, 4 wall walks. 8 thrusters, 5 wall walks. 6 thrusters, 6 wall walks. The standards: the dumbbell thruster, your hip crease has to pass below the top of your knee in terms of squat depth. And at the top of the rep, the dumbbells have to be in line with the shoulders as you press. They can't go out into the YMCA. And then they also have to be in line with your body in terms of making sure that you lock out and press back in line with your body from profile view, that you can see that. For the wall walk, it is the 2022 open standard. So we're going to take a 60-inch line from the walls for the males, and 55-inch line from the wall for females, and both males and females will go to a 10-inch line from the wall where any part of your hand has to touch that line. So again, it's perfectly fine. Fingertips are at that starting place and only the kind of the heel of your hand touches at that 10-inch line. But some part of your hand has to touch both those lines. You may set up your floor pan as you choose. Just make sure that you're safe when you're doing so. Now let's loop in Coach Chris. We'll talk about strategy.
So combination of movements, right? Thrusters and wall walks. They did this at the games. I think it was 2021 maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously for them, it was heavy barbell thrusters. And
185, 125,
and wall walks.
Was it 10 to 1?
Mm-hmm. So
descending.
That combo is tough, obviously, because, thruster includes, an upper body vertical press. And then you got wall walks where your hands are basically, you're in a pressing motion over your head, right? Not relative to that workout, but my opinion is that dumbbell thrusters into wall walks is actually going to be a tougher combination.
I would agree.
Just because of the neutral grip, you're going to be taxing your shoulders and your triceps more in the press, but also stabilizing the dumbbell. You can't really rest it on your chest in the front rack.
Right. So like if anyone's ever done like a double dumbbell overhead hold versus like an overhead squat hold, like at the top of an overhead squat, like just holding a barbell over your head versus holding dumbbells over your head, the dumbbells are so much harder.
So much harder.
Crazy.
And so that combo is definitely going to get tough. And so I would try to think about in movement, right? Trying to stay as relaxed as humanly possible, relaxing my grip, letting the dumbbells kind of sit to the back of my shoulders, and really, 90+% of the power going into the press should be all from my legs. Is really focus on driving with my legs, squeezing my butt, and almost trying to utilize my arms the best I can to be a guide to the top of the press.
Yeah.
And then just kind of relax, letting them almost crash onto my shoulder.
That will happen in the second half. Right. You want the choice.
Whether you like it or not. And then on the wall walks, I think, speed of execution is going to be huge, right? And so like what I might do is after a set of thrusters, kind of not walk, but maybe take a little bit longer in the transition to the actual movement. But once I hit the floor and I'm ready to go, it's got to be like almost a sprint on the movement itself, because that movement in particular, time under tension is so huge, even compared to some other movements, right? The longer you take to perform the movement, your shoulders or your triceps are just going to fatigue so heavily. So,
right. It would be like if you did a handstand push-up and you're doing singles, and each time you kicked up and waited 2 seconds to do your rep. It's like, why would you ever do that? Like kick up and get going right away. Or even like rope climbs, I think it's maybe something similar where it's like you'll fry your grip if you do slow rope climbs. In this case, you're going to fry your triceps and your shoulders if you do slow wall walks. It's not really, shouldn't be an option in your mind, at least.
Right. And so that's kind of how I would approach that. In terms of the thruster reps, honestly, the reps in both of these movements are small, right? And so I can trick some people into staying, I'm going to go unbroken. And then halfway through the workout, you're like, all right, well, I can't lift my arms over my head now, right? And so kind of being honest with yourself in terms of looking at the rep scheme and saying, okay, do I break on the front half of the thrusters? Because you might be able to stay unbroken on your thrusters. And hey, if you're really good at wall walks, maybe it doesn't affect you. But if you're not, you don't want to get to a point on the wall walks that we were all at in, I think it was 2020, where you're literally just face down on the floor. Like, I can't lift my arms. And so that's kind of how I would go about approaching it.
Yeah. Again, two things that I would think of. One is going back to the dumbbell thruster technique itself. Use your legs, obviously, like you're saying, as much as you can, but then also like don't hold in the lockout with the dumbbells at all, like over your head. Like immediately, like go to end range, but immediately drop them back down. Don't like hold up there for a second and try to like catch your breath. Like press end range and right back down, sort of like what most people do in like a ring muscle up, where it's like press through and like fall back down right away. Same sort of thing here. Like you want to spend the least amount of time in the lockout as you can. And if that means that you have to break and set down the dumbbell so you can kind of catch your breath again, that's a much better option than just kind of plowing through and trying to like grind out those reps and they get slow. So I think that's one thing. The other thing would be even like in how you're getting down to your wall walk. Again, I think we keep bringing up movement efficiency because in a movement that's super high interference, like it's not going to come down to as much like your like engine or like capacity in the traditional sense. It's way more about muscular endurance, and the way you preserve that the best you can is by keeping your movement as efficient as you can, as long as you can. So for the wall walk, even like how you're getting literally onto the floor and back off the floor matters. Like if you're like getting yourself, like lowering yourself into a push-up, you're going to be doing that multiple times. And like same thing, if you're like doing like a push-up to get out of your last rep, like you finish chest back to the floor and then you basically push yourself back up. The less you can do that and like get your knees underneath yourself and like kind of like fall onto the ground.
Yeah.
Similar to a burpee, like you don't want to like do an eccentric push-up in the bottom of a burpee. Like you want to like basically fall down and then get back up. It's the same sort of thing here, where it's like the way you're going to be most efficient is if you don't really use your arms at all to get down and up out of the wall walk.
Right.
Last thing I'll say, this is kind of my last tidbit here, is I think for a lot of people, they're going to be doing this a lot longer than they think. Like this workout is going to get really long. As soon as you get to like the rounds of 5 and 6 in wall walks, I think a lot of people are going to be like laying on the ground like this, like trying to like catch their breath and let their arms recharge.
Yeah.
And I think people are going to fall apart. And I think it's going to get really sloppy and really ugly. And the time remains going to drag out a lot in the second half of this workout if you're not super focused on staying relaxed and efficient in the first part.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Any other thoughts for us, Christopher?
No, man. No, that's going to be, like I said, you mentioned interference. That's the name of the game. How much can you preserve your shoulders and triceps and buffer fatigue through them throughout that workout? So that's kind of it.
And lastly, we encourage as many people as possible to jump in with you and do these workouts. You've got people who want to throw down with you. By all means, encourage them to do that. However, we want everyone to submit their scores, right? So where you're going to go to is zorfitness.com. You'll hit on menu, drop down from the protocol. You'll hit that tab called name game. And then you'll go down to the first workout, which should be the newest one. And you're going to click that little green arrow. There you'll be able to enter your name also with the workout name. That's important because it tags it so it doesn't get lost in the forum later on. But then you obviously are going to put your score or your time, and then you'll submit it. If you click on that little number next to it, you're going to see all the other comments, right? You might actually not be able to view them all. So if you hit view all comments, that's going to take you down sort of a leaderboard where you get to compare scores. And then also your coach gets to help determine where you stack up versus other competitors to be able to determine your individual weaknesses. It's going to be super helpful for us, pretty exciting and engaging for you guys. And if you're someone who's watching this, you're not a Zor Fitness athlete yet, I'll link to it below, but you can either check out the protocol or one-on-one coaching and we'll reach out, see if you're a good fit. And for everyone, best of luck on the workout.